evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is a nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are 50 years old. We've been in Atlanta all 50 years, and we're very glad now to be. We moved over to Decatur 5 years ago. You're not on camera. Come on, grab a seat. We are really excited to be here with all of you tonight to celebrate Madam Queen, the life and crimes of Harlem's underground racketeer, Stephanie St. Clair, sorry. Mary Kay McBrayer is the author. She's here tonight in conversation with Jeffrey W. Peterson. We're really excited about this book and really glad that Mary Kay reached out to us because we love to support our hometown folks. So congratulations, Mary Kay, on your success. We're really glad to be helping you launch this book and glad to be with friends and family both in the room and online. So thanks to all of y'all for coming out to support Mary Kay tonight. So Mary Kay is the author of America's First Female Serial Killer, Jane Toppin and the Making of a Monster, as well as the book we're here celebrating tonight, Madam Queen, The Life and Crimes of Harlem's Underground Racketeer, Stephanie St. Clair. You can find her shorter works at Oxford American, Narratively, Mental Floss, and Fangoria, among other publications. She hosts the podcast about women and true crime, the greatest true crime stories ever told. You can find out more about her at her website, which is just her name, marykaymcbrayer.com. And her conversation partner tonight is Jeffrey W. Peterson. Jeffrey is a teacher, writer, and film critic. He previously taught English composition at Spelman College and the University of West Georgia, as well as language arts and percussion at Metro Atlanta high schools. He currently teaches at Fusion Academy in Alpharetta, Georgia, while pursuing a PhD in moving image studies at Georgia State University. He's a BA in English and MFA in writing with focus on poetry, and is a member of the Atlanta Film Critics Circle, the Black Film Critics Circle, and African American Film Critics Association. So we are really excited to jump right into this conversation, but I do want to let y'all know you'll be able to ask questions. The only thing I ask is if you're in the room, please raise your hand and let me bring you the microphone so that we can get your voice on the camera for everybody to hear, especially our folks at home. And if you're watching at home, please just put your questions in the chat and I will be sure to vocalize them for you. So without further ado, please put your hands together for our hometown Madam Queen herself, Mary Kay. Folks who want a seat can come on in and grab one. Yeah.
If you're
not,
you want to see,
I can also bring another chair out if you don't. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. It is Friday night and the traffic is awful, and you could be anywhere in the world and you're here, and that is not possible. So we're going to try and give you the tea. Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate everybody coming out. Icebreakers?
Sure.
Just to jump in?
Yeah.
What are you watching?
Well, we did watch 15 Hours of the Dead very recently, so we were the treaty It is super intense, and we binged it in like 3 days. I don't know how we marathoned it.
Where's your husband? We're in recovery right now.
Well, we don't have recovered.
What else are we watching?
Well, we just finished Charis.
Yeah.
This was a really fun to watch it without needing to start over again. There was a little bit of a drought, so I have audiobooks to make so I don't know The Terror. Have you ever heard of The Terror?
Yes.
It's historical fiction horror.
That's what you're on.
I know. It's totally my jam. My friend recommended it, and I was like, how do I not know about this book? This sounds amazing. It starts off like in the Arctic winter, which is at like wild number, like 70 degrees below zero, which I can't even fathom. And the ice has, like a pothole, right? Like it expands when it freezes. So the boats are like at 30-degree angles, and they've been stuck there for 2 years. That's how it starts. So it's like it's a video book.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's the narrator is really good. When the narrator is really good, it's almost like you're watching it in your head, but it's like 30 hours long instead of 2 hours long. So I'm just and they do all the accents too, all the different British accents.
Right, somebody remind me of this. We're going to come back to audiobooks at the end. That's the question, right? We have to find out, was it cameras?
Right, is it you?
Yes, we did. Somebody remind me of something to do.
What are you watching?
What are we watching? I make this joke with most of my friends. My wife and I start series, but we don't always finish them. So we are in season 1 of Abbott Elementary. We are in season 3-ish of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Don't know how it is. We are in Schitt's Creek, season 1. Don't know how it is. We have so many questions. They're many babies.
And they're still here.
So I want to talk about the alcohol before we do that. You guys know me. I don't love it when I haven't seen a film. You want to feel great. I have not seen Godfather 2. Just transition. Yes, the shock. It's just transition into the talk today. We want to talk about first Godfather. I'm hoping that Mary Kay will give us a story about COVID. Because I've heard that you may or may not have met him.
I really wanted to meet him,
Yes.
but he was very protected, like by his. It was not his entourage, but it wasn't like if he already there. We're like right here, we're like right there. That was like this place in Tyler to make
So we're breathing the same air.
Yeah, like across the movie. It was in a way. And as far as like not having seen Godfather 2, don't worry, I can write it, recite it from right to you.
Why is the first one?
I think that the second one, this is my very unpopular opinion, is that the first Godfather is superior to the second. Because the second movie should have been like more than one movie. Like, there's just so many narratives going on that I would really have liked to.
So
they're both amazing.
So part one is woven really well.
I think so.
Cartoon films.
It's cool. It's like it's a lot going on, and I would have liked to for more going on. That makes sense. Like if you do 2 movies, you can make them both 4 hours long. Yes.
How did that really transition for me? Because I'm curious, out of all of your research, out of all of the travels, how did you boil all this story down for me to what, 230 pages?
Yeah. Great question. Most of it is because that's how much is corroborated.
Okay.
So a lot of it is stuff that she like someone overheard her saying, which I try to be very transparent about in the book of saying like, here's what someone said she said, and here's why I think it could be real, or here's why I don't think it is real.
Because
it was her nemesis saying it.
Yes.
Like how honest could it be? I don't know. So I think that helped. And then also, I am a big fan of get in late, get out early. So if I could say, why use 3 words of what we'll do. So, and also, I don't know if y'all feel like this once you read, but it's like, sometimes it's like, well, this is too, I don't need all of this. Like, I find myself like skimming sometimes to get to the dialogue, and I didn't want to do that. And I'm not proud of that. I should have probably have said that. But
I was going to say, this is going to be a question later on. I'll go back to the super conversation book, easy to dive into, easy to digest. We're giving some history at the same time as you're giving some biographical information, and I'll come back to this as well. Random spurts of like the self that farmers, but I feel like it works really, really well.
Thank you. This question.
I do have questions, but that's a state.
Actually, my editor told me to do that. She was like, "Can you bring more in there so we trust you more?" And I'm like, "You want my opinions? I give those for free all the time." Absolutely, more opinions for sure. So, yeah, that was a great piece of feedback. I would have loved to have that her in my
Yeah. So this sets me up a little. I want to know, is there a personality traits in between that you also have?
Oh my God.
And where's the to overlap?
I think she was a little bit of a hothead, and I can't throw things. Like just because like group chats, even I'm like, I cannot believe this happened. Like I just fires me up, and I'll be thinking about it, like while I'm washing dishes angrily. So I guess that, and then also she just like wouldn't give up. Like she, I mean, I don't want to say like I also was like very. But all odds are against me or anything, so I don't think that is true. I think it was true of her, and she succeeded against those odds. But just that tenacity is really admirable. So I would like to have that trait. I don't know if I do, but I like to think I do. Yeah. Thanks. What about you? What traits do you share?
wasn't prepared.
Conversation.
That's
There's a
not all
conversation.
Um,
Well, do you like her as a person?
I'll hang out with her.
Okay.
That's another question that I'm gonna have.
Okay.
Later on, are we going to the speakeasy with her? Were you trying to break into the social club with her just to check it out? Or were you going to tea with her? We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Where do I see myself? I notice that she's surrounded by people of all walks of life. And I'm not always proud of that in myself, but I try my best with as many people from as many different walks as I possibly can.
That's cool.
And so I noticed that she's talking to the person on the corner. She's willing to talk to the politician. She's willing to talk to the cop or family members, anyone that comes across them.
I think that's what you got in that quality.
Yes.
From so many people is like talking to people in the way that they achieve.
Yeah. She's up to the people.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I'm curious about. What word or adjective in specific would you use to describe her? Because as I'm reading, I noticed that she's pretty much everything. She's a politician in quotation marks. She's an activist as well. She's an entrepreneur. She's a businesswoman. You have all that on the cover. I'm also noticing that she's pushing for like labor.
Yeah.
And she's pushing for voting rights. She's a woman of the people. So what adjective would you use?
I just think she's really expressive.
Yes.
Like on all fronts, like she's leaving an impression. Whether it's like, oh, I'm really glad to have you on my team, or I'm really glad to you. Like you're not gonna meet her and then forget.
And just to clarify, this is, I'm not give you a word. Can we say this is the quintessential book on her right now?
There are
a few other.
There are books about her, but not one that tells a story, if that makes sense. There are books that they are in my works cited. So if you want to go check out Just the Facts, ma'am, they are all there. You can get that. There's one called The World of Stephanie Sinclair that I found really helpful, but it was actually named, and it is more about her world than her. So it's about like the West Indies at that time and problems at that time. And that was very helpful in kind of getting the baseline. And then I used all of her sources, so kind of networked it that way.
It's a smart way to research.
Thank you. They've already done it for you.
Yes.
You know, like just they'll get like that's the list. That's your scavenger hunt. Like go get it. So I think that one was really helpful. And then I think LaShawn Harris is the author of several articles about her that are very specific and really fun. Like those read like stories, but they were just perfect. So I think, and then she is most often like a character in someone else's story, which I find egregious because she was the best. She was literally the best, and that's why we don't know her name, is because she knew, like, if you have an illegal business, maybe you don't want to tell everyone about it, or she knew how to tell them. So in Hoodlum, which is about, I think, Bumpy Johnson, she is one of the supporting characters. In Dickie Hines was Dutch Schultz's lawyer who snitched, and that was a really fun serial to read too, because it's very hammed up, like because it was published in like chapters basically, and so she's in that as well, but as a minor character because it's Dutch Schultz's story. They were nemesis.
Can I say that ties into some of the themes? Yeah. I'm going kind of English teacher mode on.
Let's do it.
But she's always
English teacher too.
If she's always in the background, that means that she's in everybody else's story. So you piece all of that together.
Exactly.
A story.
Yeah, like a lot of adjacent research.
And she's also purposely kind of in the background.
Yeah. Like I was in the back. Do y'all remember that song from I don't know, like 15 years ago? It's like that video, I was in the back. Superman video, I was in the back. Like she's there for everything.
I hear some giggles. I think so.
I think you guys.
Is this my space name or is this?
I think you listen.
Fine. Is it John or me? You're showing my age.
There, I think, I don't know anything else except for I can't believe I remember it. That's that bingo number. Like that was my. Here, I got it. Thank you for doing that for me. Yeah.
Writer question.
Okay.
How did you do this? Big question.
Yeah. Like, what was the process? Like,
we're talking about secondary sources. We're talking newspapers. We're talking primary sources that she's in the background of. Like we're in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s. Some of these items may not even exist anymore to read. I'm curious, did you have to go so far as just pull out like the micro?
Oh God, that's so much fun. Yes, I felt like Clarice Starling, like in the basement with the case files, like flipping through. It's so fun.
So you went journalist, though.
Sort of. I mean, I feel like I am not even close to being as neutral as a journalist because, like, I have lots of thoughts about everything. So
You would say subjective.
very, very much subjective.
So how did you
So how did I? What was the process? Well, I saw her picture in the Museum of the American Gangster in New York City. My first time in New York City, so I walked past it 3 times, of course, before I went in. And that's no longer there anymore, and I'm really sad about that. I think it's fully closed during I think. But maybe it will be inspired to reopen. Anyway, it was a speakeasy, so it's not just me being a rube. Like I was supposed to be hidden at first. And I saw her picture on the wall, and listened to the whole Julie Joseph was amazing. And at the end, I'm like, can you please tell me everything you know about this woman in this photo? And it's the name on the front of the book, which is I love that picture so much, and I'm so glad that we were able to use it because, right, like look at her. Right, she's sitting on someone's desk. That's not her desk. Like, oh, it's not her desk, but I know it. I don't know it, but I know it. Like her shoe, you can't really see it in that photo, but her shoes are awesome. She has lame, I think, on, which I didn't even know they made that in the 30s. I know, and just like the shoulder, the waist, like the yes. Anyway, so I was like, tell me everything you know. And she's like, I just did. I'll take your money. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm left to my own devices. So fortunately, underneath that photo, actually, it might have been that one. It might have been a different one. There's postcards in the front that have another photo of her on it. I'm not really sure if I was clear to use that. So it's all like that I made those. So. Right. But she has like a fur on and a turban, and she looks amazing again. And she's like, like a little smirk in the photo, which people didn't just take photos back then. Like, she was like, get it right the first time.
Also take a photo.
Yeah. And underneath it, right where it had been cut off, was that line, well, folks, I have been arrested again. You can't leave me hanging on that. Also, English was not her first language, and that's how she wrote that. And she knows her audience. Like, she really does. So I found some of those articles in the New Amsterdam News, all of which are sourced in the back of the book. So if you want to go check them out and look at that photo that we were not authorized to use, they're all there. And I found a lot of information about her that she said. And it was like, it was an Instagram post, but it was like something you post to Instagram for your followers to read. Like people who are already backing you to more back you. So I started there, and then there were, of course, in the Instagram news, lots of other articles that mentioned her as well, because her articles that she wrote, she paid to have published, but they were paid for as advertisements. And there was some actual journalism about her in those newspapers as well. So we did that, got some court records, and then just kind of anyone that mentioned her, I was like, take that. Like, just take everything. Snippets together, scrapbooking, basically. Like what split screen, right? Which case I had to do. Thank you. So I have like one over here and one, or we're back like one over here and one over here, and I was like dragging and dropping quotes into chronological order, and then outlining from that, and then trying to figure out like when there was missing information, which was often, or conflicting information, which was even more often, whose story to kind of go with and why. And then sometimes it's like telling both stories because I don't know. And I don't trust either one of the stories that I had. So it was kind of finding that middle ground of what they were not saying.
Which can I say might be quintessential fiction?
I think so.
The perspective that you're bringing in, the truth doesn't actually exist. So people
it's subjective, just if you ask. I don't know that everyone would agree with that. Some things are true and some things are not. I just don't think exactly. So hopefully, I have been transparent about that in this book that we are selling as nonfiction. Because the other thing that's really annoying about that is like after you read a book and you've taken everything for true, and then it comes out like, oh, I made some stuff up. So you should have told me that in the book. That's not fair. So I try to be very upfront about I made this up.
Yeah, I'm still working on my phrasing for that. That's what I'm calling it, an autobiographical framing. Because those of you that haven't read the book yet, it's constantly oscillating back and forth between this fact what's the story is what Mary Kay thinks about that story about that. So sometimes before she shares it, sometimes afterward. I think it's super, super interesting because you're literally in the text, but also seeing your thought process and a little bit of research process at the same time.
Thank you.
I think it's fascinating.
I appreciate that. I also thought her story was fascinating. And sometimes I was like, I don't know why I feel like this is the way that something is, but I do. Like, we don't know what kind of fur she's wearing. I couldn't find it out, but there, like, right inside that advertisement, there was one for like a wolf fur. And I was like, I mean, if I was company, I would want my fur advertised right next to this woman for sure. And I have to pay for a photo. Absolutely, I'm to buy that. You know, so sometimes I just have to decide on what I felt was the most likely, and sometimes I would like to say that beforehand because it was like a real reach, and sometimes it would be a common word. Like, I don't know if his name was James, but I feel because it was like the third most popular name in the year this guy was born. Like, it's not unlikely. Yeah. I'm glad you think so. And you said if you read the book, it's been out for like 3 days, so like no pressure if you have not read the book.
What else is there to do? Right?
Absolutely nothing going on in anyone's life right now.
This summertime, this margaritas are starting.
They have some of those after this. So hang out. That's great.
Can I slightly jump off topic? You went to New York, and that's where you got your inspiration from. Do you have a chance to go back?
I did.
Same time?
Yeah, thank you. So I went the first time, and it just her story, her picture really stuck with me the whole time. And then I did a whole bunch of research, and then as soon as things were opening back up, I was like, I'm going back. I'm gonna get more, and I got all the nothing. And I was so disappointed when I went that I didn't find any new information, and I was like on the verge of tears, like, well, this is great outreach that I did, or whatever. And then, after I kind of got some perspective on it, was like, well, no, that means that you found the things that were findable. So that means that you're like ready there right now. That's kind of how I knew when it was time to draft, because it's so easy to get stuck in that research part, especially when you're a person who lives in the Wikipedia wormhole like me. Like, I would just keep clicking on those links and just keep going, like, how did I get here?
You don't probably be on that Wikipedia page. So
people, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I did it. It's like I ran out of finding new things. And then, I mean, hopefully, right, someone will read this and then get in touch with me angrily and be like, you left out a really important thing. And then I would be like, tell me about it. Tell me everything. I looked for you. Where have you been? Yeah, so I even I don't want to say I broke into the apartment building because I didn't, but I also went in behind someone who lived there, like a little Trojan horsing situation. It's cool. There's penny time in the lobby, and I didn't go into the apartment, which I was really close to knocking on the door of like the place where, like, the corner apartment where I was pretty confident she lived. But then I was like, no, that would be actually.
I should know my landmarks. But what is that close to?
It is in Harlem, and it is 409 Edgecombe. It's on Edgecombe Avenue. Yeah, it's a historical building. It's still apartments, but they're. You can walk there. Yeah. Which is so fun. When I was walking like from her apartment complex to where her bank was, and it was like 7/10 of a mile. And like, New Yorkers don't drive, right? Like, they take the subway, and she was in a limousine with a chauffeur going 7/10 of a mile. Okay, so that's a really good flex. And then, like, she pulled over next to this, like, this is one of my favorite stories about her. She pulled over to Marvel Cook, who was like a starting journalist at the Amsterdam News, and she knew who she was. Like, she knew who Marvel was, right? Like, she knew the people who were not established yet. And then she rolled down the window, and Marvel knew who she was, and she was like, "Get in, let me tell you what this bastard did to me." And Marvel was like, "Oh, okay," and like turning him like the next day, right? Like, that was one of my favorite moments, especially when I was there and realizing, like, I can see one. Like, I can see both of them from here. Like, you don't need to try. No one. You don't need to be driven.
Right. Right. So you're cranking this first draft out after 2 visits to the museum. And you're the type of person that you put everything on the page, or the outlining.
Oh, big outline.
Big outline.
Big outline. Oh my gosh! Once you have an outline, all you gotta do is write it. You know, like you've already. I mean, that's you know that's the hard. To me, that's the hard part. Once you have all the facts, it's like now it's fun. Like I can figure out how we got from one thing to the next. Because I mean, yes, there is a true thing and then there is a non-true thing, but there's lots of variations in the truth. And it really depends, I think, on who's telling the story. How you get the causality of one thing causing the next thing. That's to me is very subjective. Yes, please do.
But once you all do read it, there are multiple newspaper articles in the text, but these articles are her writing and then someone else editing her, and then them like passing it back and forth before it actually goes to publication.
Yeah.
So that process is interesting to me too, because I feel like you're mimicking that with your work as well. So there is a story out there, but it's traveling through like
it's her story.
Yeah.
It's her story from her perspective. And if I tell you a story about my life, it's going to be the best version of me. You know, like it's not going to be where my makeup wasn't done that day, or I didn't have my hair fixed in any way at all, or it wasn't just a nest on top of my head. In the story, no, I look amazing, right? So I'm gonna, and if I was her, especially because she had a public image, and she was very good at managing that. Like she was her own PR, which is so incredibly impressive to me. Because that was real hard to do. Yeah.
You made a bit of a reference to that earlier when you referenced Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time, she's a relatively low-key celebrity, so there's a chance that you might see her on the street, but otherwise, maybe you hear about her on the radio.
Maybe. I feel like she was pretty. She got things under wraps. So like, if you knew, you knew type of thing.
So newspaper articles when she chooses.
Well, they were local newspapers
Yes.
too, like for Harlem specifically. So they wouldn't have necessarily even been in the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, you referenced New York Times and Post a few times, but I mean, considering all these other moments, they're small.
Yeah, like unless it says like this is Post of Times, and I think there's one from Baltimore newspaper as well. But I also think Sufi was from Baltimore, so that might have been how it. Or he was Chicago, Baltimore. His story is also he was slippery too. He was the hardest character.
Yeah. All right. Don't have phrases, but can you think of a modern contemporary for
Yes.
and this can be fictional or it can be a real person.
Oh,
Like who would fictional? I did that later. Yeah, who do you think is giving this queen energy?
Yes. Okay. So this the other day someone asked me a similar question, and my knee jerk was Rihanna. Right, she has Rihanna energy, I feel like. But we're seeing her like at the peak of her like peak, right? Rihanna energy. So I don't know that she would have always had that. And Jason and I were talking about it on the way here, and I was like, I feel like it would be more like if Oprah got Rihanna's image, where it's like, oh, but she's a lady. Like we know her for her generosity, and now she suddenly is a bad girl. What? You know? So I think that I think that that's the best I could do.
I was thinking
the
Oprah
cross.
set it down.
You did.
I was saying that, but I didn't go there.
We're both billionaires and black women,
Yeah.
and those were like, well, okay, those are good starts. Right? She would have been very rich.
I got kind of weird with it. I was thinking of Skyler from Breaking Bad. But I know just a weird place when I was thinking that. Yeah. That's where my brain.
We love to hate Skylar. As a girl who loves, I assume everyone here loves Breaking Bad, yes. And Skylar is like the best worst. And that monologue from the deposition where she goes in there and plays dumb as a bookie, I was like, well, okay. Like, because I would never do that. Like, I would never play dumb. I would fail. Like, immediately, I could not be a mafioso because I just have too much pride. Like, I have no self-preservation skills, only pride. Only taste and pride. But I think, what was I thought? Where was I at?
That's where my brain went.
Yeah.
I was thinking Skyler from Breaking Bad.
Okay, that's where I.
That's my fictional contemporary.
I love that. Except for I think she would have been leading it and not Walt.
Okay. Yeah. Can Walt do it without Skyler?
No. But he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
Interesting. I'm thinking about this.
Small side story, but Breaking Bad was my pandemic watch. I don't suggest it for anybody, but I watched 3 episodes. My wife remembers this. I watched 3 episodes of Breaking Bad a day.
Oh my
during
God.
the pandemic. Yes. You know, I had time. Yes.
You watched the last 3 episodes of one day? Because that's like 6 movies.
Yes, so you have to start spreading it out because it's too much.
We have to process in between. Processing. Only watch.
Yeah, you're behind on shows, so I watched The Sopranos.
That one's a real undertaking though, because they're long episodes and there's a lot of them in every season. I mean, it'll be over, you get to it and you're in for a treat.
I was going to apologize to your husband, so I haven't watched Peaky Blinders. Oh, apologize to the brain. Sorry. No, but yeah, Breaking Bad was my show. That's the reason I was.
Breaking Bad is my show too. That's gonna be a theft tattoo. There's no half measures with book tattoo here. It's fading, but whatever happens. New age. Yes, I also love Breaking Bad and Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders, I'm trying to say, have put a subtitle on. I love it. I don't want them to change what they're
You don't
doing.
want to miss it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody else subtitles and shows.
Yeah.
Anybody get subtitling?
What's it next for my
Yeah,
living?
subtitles. No subtitles.
The subtitles on for everything. You know?
I do subtitles. I feel like I'm rolling the dice.
Okay. And when we go to the theater, I'm like, wait, where are the words?
I'm gonna go ahead and once again, I'm still working on this phrase, but how do you balance moving back and forth between you and your process of writing it and then the actual material? Once you guys read it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Where I've got a long passage about the queen, and then it's interspersed of this is what I think, this is what I know for sure, this is what I believe, and then you'll transition back into her story. Really, definitely. How are you? How are you balancing that?
I think I wrote it as the scene first, and then when I would as the man was like first trimester, always terrible of everything. They're supposed to be that's like right. Yeah.
Do you consider your outline a draft, or is it an outline? It's for the writers.
It gets so unwieldy once you outline so much that it sort of you just kind of delete the numbers, you know, and then it becomes the first draft, right? Is that how you do it too? I taught English composition for so long that I was like, here is your topic sentence. Here are 3 supporting points. Here is your transition. Right? Like, do you have that in your brain too?
I'm tell you how
Oh, you have to tell the class now.
I'm literally putting
You were stream of conscious.
Yes.
You're the one. You and Stephen King. You're the
I'm out there. Sometimes it's things, sometimes it's not. Is it in my notes somewhere?
Yeah.
You might connect it.
Yeah, you can always save it.
Yeah.
That's the hard part too, is like pulling your just
Yeah, I'm also a hypocrite because I also have taught English before. I forced my students to outline. Then they asked Mr. Peterson for his outline. It does not exist.
Oh, they asked me for my outline. I'm like, are y'all ready? It's 8 pages. It really does have an outline for the next thing I'm doing, and my annotated bibliography is like 60 pages. Annotated bib, clutch.
Responsible of you.
No, it's not. It's so lazy of me because I am literally copy pasting things. Citing my sources as I go, of course, because otherwise it'll be like, where did I get that one piece of information from? I know the cover was red. Right, like that's it. So I have to document it as I go, and that is also learned.
So shout out to West Georgia and Georgia College, State University.
Yeah,
you're still doing bibs.
What?
You're still doing bibs, like annotated bibs.
Yeah, because once I realized that was the hard part, I was like, why am I doing this separately? Like I should be just copying my notes over as I go. But then
I have multiple tabs on the computer.
Oh,
I gotta say multiple 150.
Oh, me too. Even with all of the help. But then, Google Chrome was like, oh, snap, with a little dinosaur. And this didn't happen to me. It happened to my friend. Her roommate, I was going to say friend, they were not friends after this. Spilled a margarita on her keyboard. and it was gone. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that is tragic. And now I don't know what to say. Like, you blame the victim, right? You should have had your shit backed up. But
The cloud and maybe an external hard drive.
both.
That's all you
You
got.
have to have both. And then one day I'm so scared I'm gonna lose my external hard drive.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Something that really that's it. That's the most
Yes,
important
we-
thing. I'm trying to make it down. I was like, no, that is the core.
Yeah.
That's the thing I would that's for
Like,
too.
right? I don't know how to count. Do they do hard drives in terabytes? Are they tetra? Terabytes? Yeah, I'm not smart. Right. I mean, it's let's get a couple of them. I'm not a tech person. So, let's get a couple of them. Yeah, get a couple of them. Four tetras. I did. Maybe I just like Tetris a lot. I still enjoy it. Is it terabyte? I'm on right now. It's terabyte. Terrible. I do know words. I don't know words.
Those are maths. That's different.
That's why I'm moving state juniors.
Oh my gosh, speaking of it was so hard to write a math person that's not a math person. There was this one part where I had to teach myself how to play dice. I could not play dice right now.
I was taking notes.
I was looking at my notes while I was like, let me make sure I teach her right because again, 50 tabs open at the same time. And
I can't do dice. I can't do spades. So I'm like over there. I'm taking this. I can't. I do that. I know I'll get somebody.
Yes. I'm there. Show my work, we do it. But big numbers in my head, no, that's such a gift. I feel like that thing you have it or you don't. Yeah. Where you keep it in your head. Like you can be taught to do arithmetic, but you know, like sometimes you have a talent and sometimes you can develop a skill. And I don't think that's a skill that you can really do if you don't already have the natural application.
I think the subjectivity helps you there because the way you write about her acquiring and showing her talents is really, really nice. You can see the confidence in her, even though I'm over there listening to my sketch chat, trying to figure out what is going on. I don't understand this. Yes. Yeah. I am an English teacher. I don't outline.
It is. I mean, it's all there. It's just not in the album. You skip this step. You just see measurement.
Okay, I'll try to circle back. Okay. All right. So our first outline is basically a draft. I'm converting that over, and then you're going in. You're just trimming the edges, or you're dropping in more personality as you're moving from like draft 2 or to draft 3.
Yeah, both of that. And I feel like once you get that far in, like once you're on your third draft, you've probably read it, I don't know, 60 billion times, right? Third draft, yeah. And I feel like at that point you can't really see the forest for the trees. Like it sounds good in your head because you've been intuiting it. Or when I say you, I mean I've been intuiting it for 2 years. So like I know it, but it never made it from here to page. So that's when I
give us the dates. When are you going on that New York trip? You going to the museum?
Okay, the first time I went was with Rachel in 2019. Second time 2023.
The reason I'm asking, I don't know if everyone understands the process of creating.
Long. So long. Not that there wasn't like other things going on at the time. I wasn't solely focusing on doing that the whole time.
Yeah, it's six years.
Something like that.
How do you balance it all? Because you all are traveling at the same time. You're raising a family, looking into the family, throwing on some parties as well that I've attended. You're doing a lot of things at the same time. The drinks are always ready, by the way.
One of the 3 things you need at a good party is house drink. It's already made. You just pour it.
It's always ready.
I'm trying to
look at the faces. I don't know if you want to know this. Yeah.
You have to move the furniture because otherwise people just sit and don't talk to people they don't know. Those are the 3 things. There's more, but those are the 3 core things.
Yeah. So how are you balancing all of that? So this project, other projects,
yes.
Family, outlining.
Balance.
Yeah. Is it balance? I can use another word.
Well, I don't know.
Juggle.
Juggle is probably more accurate. In my head, juggling looks like because it's a mess. So I was actually working for my dad when I was writing. He's back there.
Sure.
So like, that's my dad. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody, for coming. But I was working for him, so I had like 9 to 5 booked, right? And then I don't know if this is the case with y'all, but I feel like this is high school. Like the more I had to do, the more I got done. Like if I didn't have anything to do, I would be like, I'll do that tomorrow. / never. Yeah. Right. So I think that putting too much on my plate. No, I didn't make a single like deadline that I set for myself, but having it there, knowing that I was expecting it to be done, nothing motivates me but a deadline. Yeah.
Even if you go past it.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Right. Because I made some progress, which I would have just thought of it. Otherwise, I never would have done it. I would just not done it. And now it's like you gotta squeeze in that writing during nap time. And nap time could be 2 hours, could be 8 minutes. So you better make it worth it. Make it worth it.
My wife and I sometimes the nap times don't happen.
Yeah.
At all. I'm just carrying.
Right. And we just drowsy, just laying all the way out until I try to move her, and then she's like, I have to be here for this. You don't need me for this. You do need me for this. Okay. So there's that, and then also we have we're exploiting our mothers for childcare. So, but they are also people with lives, right?
It's
so
a village.
Indeed. But so when they're there, I'm like, okay, talk to you in like 4 hours. I gotta go do this while you're here because they, like I said, have lives and aren't there all the time. So I think it's just like making yourself do it when you can do it.
Yeah. Find those little windows.
Yeah, windows. And I think too, I think it's on 30 Rock where he talks about the shower phenomenon where you only have good ideas in the shower, right? So when you can't write is when I have good ideas. Is that for you too? Like when I can't write it down, it's like keep reciting it in my head, right?
I used to be notorious for an audio file.
So smart. Oh my gosh, we have the internet in our pocket. How do we use it?
It's one of my few good ideas. Like I'm driving in the car, headset on. It's not
yeah, so I think just doing it when you can do it.
I was going to say for the writers in the room, are you a page person, or are you a word count, or are you like a Stephen King? If there are fans out there, I'm going to write for 4 hours, and what I get is what I get. I'm going to have lunch with my significant other, and then I believe he edits for 4 hours after that, and then he closes the computer and he chills.
What a nice tidy schedule.
Yes, we can read. So it's why he churn out so many books. Check out his book on writing.
He is prolific, so it's working. Whatever he's doing,
he's doing 4 hours writing, tea, lunch, whatever. 4 hours editing. The day is done. Are you a page person, time person like Stephen King? Sometimes I'm like, hey, I just got to get 100 words.
Yeah.
Today.
I am a segment person. And I learned this from teaching creative writing at summer camp. Nerd camp is what we called it affectionately. They were fine with it. They named it.
Nerd is cool now.
I agree. We have returned it. We reclaimed it. But yeah, so right now I have a wonderful draft by the end of the summer. Is that going to happen? Absolutely not. But I have it blocked out where I have like 2 weeks to do like this subplot. Like that's a big outline. And I've done a lot of the research. But what I find ends up happening is like, no, you don't ever get to the draft in the amount of time that you have, but you do a lot more research while you're trying to write it. So that you still make progress, but maybe just not.
So August 1st, you're going to have something.
31st is the end of summer.
I can't do math. I can't count.
You have to do the knuckle trick. Right? Don't forget to sit twice.
My wife has to tell me. I don't know what she's writing. My wife has to tell me how many days.
Oh, the first time I said that, I was like August 30th, and I was like, wait a minute, 31st. Hang on, I got an extra day.
I think all I know is January.
Because they're the longest and shortest.
My birthday, and then it's
I know January is not any longer than like March, for example, but it feels so much. It is. The days are so much shorter.
So August is 30.
Yeah.
30. Audience.
I'm
okay with the I'm okay with the judging. I'm very but they're like you're not.
Yeah, so I'm a segment person. I
So, you know,
chunks. I also learned that the best way to make sure that you'll pick up where you left off is to leave like in the middle of the thought where you know the next thing is coming. So you know where you're headed. Yeah. Because nothing is worse than the blank page just staring at you at that blank cursor. Just slow working.
I don't know where I got this from. Sometimes I type that I don't want to type.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, you go.
Yeah, literally, writers and everybody should join. If I'm just thinking I don't really want to do this, or I wish I was doing something else, I'll type that out.
Well, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, and then slowly transition into the song, slowly transition into the poem, slowly transition into the nonfiction, whatever it happens to be.
I think Hunter Thompson used to do that too. He would just like start typing Moby Dick.
The book or
the book? Like he would have the book, typing it, and be like, "All right, I got it." Like, let's see.
That's my way to get a voice. That's risky though. I used to do that with like Sherman Alexie and with Faulkner.
Yeah.
And then you end up like dipping to the darkness.
It's like you just never end your sentence.
Yeah, don't do it.
It's like
no punctuation.
Where to the start? Yeah. Stream of consciousness.
That's good actually. I like that. Okay, you've kind of hinted at it. I'm hoping that she's going to give us some details of the future projects.
Yeah. So
we've been talking around it.
Yeah, we've been talking.
What can you tell us?
I can tell you kind of whatever I know. Okay, so the worst witch trials in the world were in Scotland, and the worst period of the witch trials was 1661 specifically. So this is after
1661.
1661.
Yes, Salem.
Salem is like so same generation could have immigrated and done that too. Yeah, could be. That's not my story, but that's a possibility for other people. Yeah. So they had this really terrible thing where there was actually a due process for trying a witch, which I always thought like it was like an traumatic situation where like something bad happened, get your pitchfork, burn your house down, kind of thing. But actually, they had to ask the English government at the time, which was just not just United, but like people were so salty about it, just United, for permission to try the witch. And most of the time, England, who had their hands really full, was like, work it out amongst yourselves, right? Like, just deal with it. Here's your permission, which was very, very sad because then it was just like the rich people trying to get richer off persecuting, mostly women, not only women, but mostly women, like widows who like inherited wealth, or anyone who was weird, right? And also they were Calvinists, so nothing bad happened to good people without a reason. Mm-hmm. So let's say I'm the right reverend and my house burns down or my cow stops producing milk. Well, she was mad at me last week and I have clearly done nothing wrong ever in my life. So it must be witchcraft. I'm pretty sure it was her. Yeah. So like now we have a victim, we have a witness. That's me. Even though I didn't see her do it, I'm still the witness somehow. Anyway, it would sometimes they would do that before they tried to get permission, and they would for sure get permission if they already had a confession. So to get the confession, right? Like, well, she already said she did it, and they would be like, fine.
So you build the case and finish the case again.
Yeah. So it was not exactly illegal to do that. It was sort of illegal to do it without permission. So they would do not torture things like depriving them of sleep, which is like the most effective torture, right? Like you can't sleep, you start hallucinating things like maybe I have a witch, right? I'm seeing the devil. So one way that they would try to get the confession is by trying to find the devil's mark. You would find the devil's mark by a place that was cold or didn't feel or didn't draw blood when someone inserted like a needle into that part of the skin. It's awful. It's awful. It's a terrible thing. And in my head when I was learning this, I was like, where in the world would you be pricked with a needle this thick, like this deep, and not draw blood? And it's like, oh, but right, it's the 17th century, so everyone has horrible scars. Everyone has had, a broken limb that didn't heal, and have tons of scar tissue and stuff. So also, maybe you're just in so much shock by the time they get to that spot that you don't feel it anymore. So
maybe you're not hydrated.
I mean, no one was hydrated. It was safer to drink the beer than the water, and everyone was a little drunk all the time. They had to be. They had really weak nails instead of water. other people were drinking tea and they were drinking ale. Anyway, so there was a special person designated for doing that rigging, and they were like kind of endorsed, right? So you call this person over to do it, and the worst one ended up not getting in trouble for pricking people illegally, but for being a woman in disguise. Which, like, what kind of crabs in the barrel situation? So that's the topic of the book, is like this story of how she got there, and how what like how what broke in your brain, right, that got you to think that that was okay to do that. And the answer is like a lot of situational stuff.
They don't give it too much weight, but I'm curious, is it like a trauma? Are they doing this to protect themselves? Or are they eating the beast?
I don't know. Right. And this one will have to be historical fiction, because while there are records from the 1660s, they are handwritten and scarce and not in standardized English, and also in Scots. So I was so excited to be like, I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna read these things from 400 years ago. I was like, no, I'm not. Like I can't even make out letters, right? And so I had someone help me do it, and even like the typeface, I'm like, I have no idea what this is saying. So I had to like get a lot of help to do it. But that one will be historical fiction, because
are we going back overseas?
I hope so.
Sure.
We've been here twice, so that's my thing.
Go again.
Yeah, it's really fun. These are really nice, despite their horrible in the past. That's a country, not individual, of course.
Transition.
Yeah. I've been over time. I'm going to get in really long answers, and I'm sorry. I just get excited. People are excited about.
I'm looking at the clock, but I have no idea when we started.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
But it is time for audience questions. So, anybody want to kick us off? Yeah, I'm gonna bring my tea.
Go read your heart steps.
Thank you for using the mic.
Oh, sorry. On your foot. Hi guys. I'm Jasmine. Hi. Or Dr. Bill 59. So on page 59, so I
didn't bring my book. Can I have the time with you?
Okay, so on page 59, there is this like little quote that I really liked, and I'm trying to figure out like, did it come from you? Did it come from her? So here's so towards the bottom of the page. After all, if your business can't run without you, then you don't really have a business. You just have a lifestyle. I love that. So, is it you? Was it like a book from her? Like where that come from?
It's my dad.
Cute.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'm glad I was able to. I'm glad I knew who we're
Yeah, it wasn't like big within her story, but I was like, is this Mary Kay? Is her? Like, where?
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur, so I learned everything that she knows from him, pretty much. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a question, but kind of a question. But I'm assuming you get a lot of your stories from ability from your father.
Yes.
Where is he?
I'm going to story right.
I still think about your speech from the wedding.
Wow.
So
I have no YouTube. It's all about me. So.
Other audience questions? Vibes, feelings, energies?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ashley. So I listened to your podcast also, and I wanted you to know when something's going to be worthy of a book versus worthy of kind of a shorter step storytelling.
Oh, that's such a good question. I think so sometimes with the podcast, we kind of get assigned the story, and sometimes it is like a one episode thing, where it's kind of open and shut, like a clear narrative, closed case. One that's coming out right now is about Susie Newsom Lynch, and our story editor. This is 3 episodes, and it's like, and this story is so sad, and it just keeps getting worse, and it was like definitely 3 episodes, right? And there's also, but there is a book about it, right? So it's like you condense everything in the book to make the show. And I also think that sometimes the subject matter is like a little bit too sad to do on a podcast that people are hanging out, like trying and commuting with one of where I don't want you to be depressed all day, you know.
As a book, you can give up some space.
I think so.
Choose a
I think
close.
so. I think you're also asking, though, how do you know if there's enough like for it? For me, it's that there hasn't been a book yet, and that there is enough to go on where there's you can get the whole story or most of the story. In this case, most of the story. That's a really good question. I had another answer as well for that.
Can I say what it reminds me of?
Yeah.
That sometimes I think the narrative or the story like has a natural shape to it.
Yeah.
But I guess as a writer, you kind of have to find what that shape or what that form.
Like at the beginning, the middle, at the end.
Sometimes it'll come to you. Sometimes it's fine.
Yes, and that jogged my memory, so thank you. A lot of the stories that we cover on the podcast aren't all the way closed, and that makes me it makes my brain loud because if it's not closed, like I don't want to be like, here's the book, and then it not be over. Which nothing is ever really over you, but I hope that kind of makes sense. And I don't want to write a whole book about people with close living relatives because I really don't want to misrepresent things that people know for sure, and that's really their story. Like about the Susie Newsom Lynch thing, which is very recent, like early 2000s. Like someone commented on Instagram that they were related to her, and I was like, oh my god! And I was like in my head, I was like, oh man, I really hope that I did this in a dignified way that doesn't offend. And I try to keep that in the back of my head all the time, but with a book, I feel like it's really hard to be like corrections corner. Like actually, this was incorrect about it. So I like it when the stories are closed. I like it when there's. I don't want to say there's no one to offend. Obviously, she has family somewhere, but I couldn't find them. And then when like no one's telling the story, those are the main things. So, thank you. I hope that answered the questions. That was great. Both those questions.
Other questions?
Lisa.
Hello, Lisa. Mother-in-law.
Yeah. You always hear about critics and reviews, and some people seem to think it's important and some don't. I was just curious about you.
That's a really good question, and one that I think about a lot because I want to know what other people think, but I don't. It is not good. So that is a really good question, and I do look, and then I get mad at myself for looking. Like you knew not to look, and you did it anyway. And I learned this in graduate school too. Like not everybody is your reader. Like not everybody is wants the story that you want to tell. Not everybody wants to help you. Like some people just hate read stuff, and sure, do it, right? Like enjoy yourself. So that's what it's there for. But I think it's hard to like not listen to people who have put in enough time to read your book. So I try not to. I try to like take feedback from people who I know what they're talking about, and also will give it to me straight, and not just be like, that's not good. Like, no, it's not. Like, if I'm giving you a second draft, like, no, I know it's not good. That's why I'm making you read it. So, I think that, and then also I really like working with an editor. I've read autobiographies from authors before who didn't enjoy working with their editors, and I don't really understand that because they wouldn't have picked your book to publish if they didn't think that it was a good story. So, really being selective about whose feedback I take, not who I listen to, but whose feedback I take has been a journey. Would you say that is the case for you? Have you also gone to an immigrant country?
I would say by now, there's maybe 10 people.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna share.
That's good.
Yeah, that I'm gonna share it with.
10.
And I'm gonna listen to what they say. Yeah.
10 is a good number. Like 4. They're all here.
We appreciate your help.
Thank you so much for your continued service.
She wants anything? question in the back from that.
Yeah, I love that.
Thumbs. Get on the camera.
Tell us one of your favorite stories about Madam Queen.
Okay. Thank you. I know there were multiple times when I like interrupted Chase's video calls to be like, "You're not gonna believe what I just heard." Okay, I think my favorite one is probably. Okay, so do y'all know Doug Schultz like as a character? He was the beer baron of the Bronx. He was the only non-Italian head of the family in the combination. So he was an underdog and also a real loudmouth and like very hot-headed. And when prohibition became, when they got rid of prohibition, right? Like when drinking and selling alcohol became legal, that was his job, right? He was a criminal, and so he was out of work. And he decided that actually the penny game in Harlem was really lucrative. So he was going to take the territory from everyone who had a numbers racket, who were coexisting pretty peacefully, including Madam Queen. And he had got the wrong one because he wrong one. And she is playing chess when everyone else is playing Candyland, right? Like to quote Pulsar, which is another one of my favorite monster movies that we didn't talk about really. So he threatened her. He sent like his heavy to beat her up. He not kidnapped, but like beat up her neighbor and made her neighbor stand in front of the peephole so she'd open the door and then beat her up. And she shoved him into the closet. She had a closet in 1930s in New York City. She had a closet. That is no status. So she shoved him into the closet and then got her heavy to come handle the guy who came to get her. Right, handle. And he doesn't exist, right? Like he, like when they ask about him, they're like, I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of this person to Dutch Schultz. So expendable, which is unfortunate in how boss work. Anyway, so I don't want to give too much away about the plot, but she wins, right? Like we can all agree, like you already know she wins. So when he's on his deathbed dying of blood poisoning, not from a shot that she fired, but from a shot that she convinced his coworkers to fire. She sent him a telegram saying, "As you sow, so shall you reap." Madam Queen signed it, of course, because only cowards don't sign their name. Madam Queen of Policy. And that's like the last thing he ever heard when he was in his right mind. And that's my favorite story about her, and also the one that is most corroborated. So I'm pretty sure that one happened. Thank you for asking.
I think that's you want to, yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so it seems like your books are all very different time periods, different stories. Does doing your research, does it make you want to go to another person within that story, or do you kind of feel like this time period, this place is like a closed door for you?
Oh, that's a good question. So, like, now that we've written about 20s and 30s, will we do 20s and 30s again? Is that kind of,
or even like 20s, 30s Harlem? Like,
okay,
did it seem like, oh, there's another character in her story that I want to research and spin off onto, or is it like, no, I'm good here?
That is a really good question. I so far haven't found that to be the case where I'm like, oh, there's another book and another side character. I don't think that would never happen. And to your point, when I'm doing the research, I go wide, right? Like go real wide with like my favorite thing for the 20s and 30s is the clothes. And they were so clever too, because in the 30s, like they didn't have a whole lot. Like that was depression. It was starting a lot of people, so they used what they had to make, like to refashion it, which I think is really dope. So researching wide was where I was going. But in the process, I usually find some other topics that are smaller, that maybe I don't have a full book for them. But like when we researched the witch breaker, we also learned like this really cool ghost story that was nearby. So I have a short story of that, but not necessarily a whole book story. So I try not to let anything go to waste because if something is cool and I didn't know about it before and I'm really deep into it, maybe other people who are really interested also don't know about it. So yeah, I try to use everything cool that I find. It hasn't been necessarily like another book adjacent yet, but that's not to say that it won't be. I think that's a really, really good question. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
We want to leave time for everybody to get their book signed, and I want to say thank you to all of our folks who are watching online. Let you know that if you're watching online, you can click the teal button at the bottom center of the screen to buy Madam Queen from us. It really does help, yes, when you buy your books from Charis. So thank you so much. We're gonna go ahead and say goodnight.